Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me here today for my presentation here at the AHDI Virtual Conference. I'm very excited to be here. Hopefully we can walk through a few things, maybe teach you a thing or two. If not, I apologize. Today we're going to be talking about cutting edge tech tools and resources for savvy job hunters. So there's a lot of different things, there's a lot of emerging technologies that I want to cover, kind of a high level, and then kind of get deeper as we go into it to try and make it all make sense as much as possible. So what we're covering here today, first thing, we're going to talk about creating a beautiful resume with Canva. Not sponsored, I should mention. It's just a really, really good tool for creating a beautiful resume and even cover letters as well. Then we're going to go through artificial intelligence, AI, and how to use it on your resume and cover letter. We'll talk about sort of going into the next one here, if AI can actually hurt your application. And then we'll go into how to prepare for the actual interview. So, your beautiful resume. So I really, really love Canva. It's a great software to help you create a very beautiful resume and cover letter very, very easily. So obviously you can use applications like Microsoft Word. That's great, but you kind of have to use your own imagination to create, a really nice, easy flowing design. And this is sort of where Canva comes in, and you don't have to think about a fancy design. It just hums with it. So the benefits of it, it's really, as I said, easy to use. You basically can just pick your template. It's got a ton of pre-made designs. It also has a presentation builder. There's a free plan as well, which is maybe the most important part. There are paid kind of additions you can get, but to create a resume, which we will go over a little bit later, you don't have to pay $1, which is really nice. Like I said, it's got the resume and cover letter builder. It can build presentations. You've got things like the ability to build a logo. So if you're creating your own business, you need a logo. Canva can do that as well for you. It's even got clothing design as an option in there as well. So if you're, starting an e-commerce store or something like that, it's an option. So there's a lot of different things to Canva that really make it a great software to use. Another thing as well, it's completely online. So you don't have to download a new application or anything like that. It's just online. You can access it anywhere. So why should you use it? One, looks good on a resume. And two, makes your resume look good. So when I say it looks good on a resume, what I mean is you have this knowledge of a software, a design software that can look really good. And if you have the ability to create postcards, beautiful looking documents, you can create presentations quickly, all those sorts of things build into your resume and look very good to an employer. So if you actually get to know Canva, it's more than just your resume or your cover letter builder. It's a lot more than that. And so I really, really recommend people get into this and really learn it because it's something that can give you a sort of design background in a sense and give you the ability to do things that your boss or manager might need a lot quicker. I don't know if you've ever had to create a PowerPoint presentation, but doing it from scratch with just like white slides is very, very difficult. Take a look at my beautiful background here. I didn't make that. AHDI provided it to me, which was super, super helpful. But it looks really, really nice. And, it would have taken me forever to come up with a design like this. Well, Canva just makes it easy. And if you know how to do that, you can really quickly put together information for and presentation tools for your management team, which is great. And then obviously point number two, it makes your resume look good. So what I want to do next is go in and build one. So when you're designing your Canva resume or cover letter, obviously the first thing you need to do is register. I already have an account, so I've just logged in here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to kind of log in. You're going to see this screen. You'll notice there's a lot that you can do in here. There's a lot of different designs you can create, different documents, regular documents. You can create planners, flyers, even presentations in here as well. So for the purpose of this, we're going to create our resume. So you go into the search bar, you search templates, and you search for a resume. And here is a massive list of all of the different resume templates that you can quickly grab and edit. So the one thing that you'll notice down here at the bottom, there's a little sort of crown and it'll say pro. So that means they're paid. So you have to have a paid account to be able to access those. But a lot of them are absolutely free. When you go into the filters here, you can also search by different styles, different themes, anything that you might want to try and filter by to find something that fits kind of who you are as a person, so you can kind of showcase that with your design here as well. So for this purpose, I'm actually just going to pick a free one, try and use an example here. So let's find one that I like. I'm a big fan of sort of minimalist design, so I'm going to go with something like this, but again, it's totally up to you and what you want to use. So I click on it. You can see the different pages here and what they look like. So you can see that this design actually comes with a cover letter, which is great. And I'm going to customize this template. Now it's really really straightforward to go in and edit this. So everything's set. So for my case, I'm going to add my title here. I want it to be all one line. And if I want it centered, it will literally drag it and show me exactly where center is. So now I know that it's centered. And then you can just go through and start filling this out. So phone number, email, if you've got a website, great, put it in. If you don't, you can just delete it. Now, because I've deleted these, I want to kind of make the spacing a little bit better. So this gives you all of the guidelines that you need. So you've noticed I've dragged it down and it's showing me that I've got it right in the middle of these two different symbols here. And I need to do the same thing with the email. And I want it perfectly in line there. Great. So your profile is pretty straightforward. You kind of want to give a little bit of this is sort of an introduction to your cover letter in a way, or your cover letter should lead sort of into this. So you can talk about kind of your goals, maybe what you want to find from employment, or just highlight yourself as a person here. So you go in and just fill this out. And again, as I kind of talked about before, you want to be true to yourself and who you are and what your goals are. A lot of people, I call it fluff. You don't want to be too over the top and add sort of content that's not super beneficial. So if someone's going to read through this, you want to make sure that they're actually grasping what you're saying. Going down a little bit here, work experience, again, straightforward. Now, what's really important here is, again, in your points of what you're doing, you're kind of tailoring it, to what the position is and what they're looking for. And it's really, really important. I feel like I've probably mentioned this a few times, but it's really important to think about what skills you had from different jobs and how they're relevant. So a lot of people will think that a job might not be relevant to something new that you're applying to, but almost every single time there's something relevant. So for example, I love giving this example. A lot of people in their past have worked at like fast food restaurants or just in restaurants in general. And if you're applying for a position at a hospital, a lot of people think that's not super relevant, but there are a lot of things. So when you're working in, a restaurant, your time management skills have to be, top level if you're going to be good at that position. And there's a lot of other skills, that you need to have. Multitasking is another example, to be able to kind of stand out. So make sure that when you're writing your work experience in here, that you're actually filling it out relevant to the job that you're applying for or the industry that you're applying into at the very least. So where it says your job position here, I'm going to say because it went down onto a new table or a new line, sorry, I'm going to expand that out. I'm just going to put where I work now, and then you can change the dates that you were there, and then you're going to go in and add what you did there. Add a second one here. Now on the left, this is really important. A lot of people don't put a ton of effort into these kind of sidebars, your skills and things like that. This is where you can really sort of stand out, and it sort of doesn't seem like it, but you really can. So when you're applying to become a healthcare documentation specialist, just as an example here, what skills do you need? What's going to make you stand out? What's most important? And oftentimes in the job posting, they'll put the skills that you need to have, and the best thing you can do is put those skills right here, all 4 right there. If they ask for 3 or 4 skills, maybe they have a few more, pick the ones that you think are the most important and list them right here. Then you go ahead and add your education. If you don't have a degree, that's fine. You can say, something like that. And then here, you would just put a quick little highlight. Probably put a little bit more than I did there, but you get the point. If you don't have more than one, formal piece of education, there's one of 2 things you can do. 1, delete these, simple. 2, show different things that you're doing. So we all know that YouTube has pretty much everything. You can teach yourself anything on YouTube. That's something that you can put here as well. So it's obviously not a degree, but what you could put is continue learning. And let's say 2016 to present. So something like that. So obviously, if you take a course online, a lot of times, especially if it's something short, they're not going to actually give you a certificate. But if you put something like this can help you kind of stand out, because employers are always looking for people who are constantly looking to learn. Languages here, maybe you don't, speak more than one. I know I don't. What you could do here is put something along the lines of, more skills, or you've got skills up here, which is great, but we could add something extra right here, and then kind of give these little graphs to rate, what you would rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Or again, if you don't want to do that, you can just delete them. Continuing down, you're going to add more of your positions if you've got them. If you only want a 1-page resume, that's fine. You can totally delete this page, but it's really nice to kind of put as much as you possibly can. A lot of people talk about you should only have a 1-page resume. If you've been working a lot, you've got a lot of relevant experience, 2 pages is totally fine in my opinion. Expertise, again, this is something great. What you can also add here is a little bit more personal stuff, a little bit more personal information. So I noticed that this template doesn't really have a lot about you as a person. So what I would do personally is I would put something like this, or maybe it's my hobbies, something like that, and then I'm going to fill out what I like to do. I'm such a big fan of putting yourself on this piece of paper. References, a lot of people don't want to add references. It's totally up to you if you want to or don't want to. Just go ahead and delete them if you don't want to, or you can put something like available upon request. And then this one's, again, really nice. It comes with a design for a cover letter. So this is something that I highly recommend for every position you apply for, is including a cover letter, even if they don't necessarily ask for it. It's your opportunity to stand out and show that you know what this company is about, or at the very least that you read their job posting. So really, really simple design. You're just going to click in here, probably delete all the Latin that's here, and start typing. Once you're done, you're just going to hit share, and you can download it as a PNG, a JPEG, a PDF. I would highly recommend a PDF, but now you've got it here. And once you're done with this and you leave, it'll always be saved in your account, so you can quickly come in, edit it, share a new one, and share it. So that's how you create a Canva resume really quickly. So now that we've kind of gone through that and built a resume there, just to kind of summarize again, you can use Canva for a whole wide variety of different tools. That's just one kind of quick example on how to build it, but the process is the same for building anything, including presentations or postcards, different things like that. So now we're going to move on to using AI on your resume. So first question, what is AI? Essentially, AI is all about getting machines to be smart, I guess. We want it to be able to do tasks. We want it to be able to perform different things for us without us having to do the work necessarily. And so the goal is to essentially have it think like a human, which sounds pretty crazy, but that's basically what the goal is. So, what I wanted to do as well to try and explain this better was to actually ask artificial intelligence what artificial intelligence is. And this is what it came up with. So I went on to ChatGPT, which I'm sure most people have heard of. It's kind of the starting point for AI in today's world. But this is what it wrote. In layman terms, AI, or artificial intelligence, refers to computer systems or machines that are designed to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. It's like creating a smart computer program that can think, learn, and make decisions on its own. AI systems are trained to analyze large numbers of data, recognize patterns, and make predictions or take actions based on that information. They can perform tasks such as speech recognition, image analysis, and even driving cars autonomously. So now, if we're being honest, that was a way better description than what I started with. Now, I sort of did that on purpose, but you can see when I sort of formulated my question to ChatGPT, I asked it to explain it in simple terms, and that's what it came up with. So it's really, really interesting, what's come about from ChatGPT and AI in general. But you see a lot of new systems based off of ChatGPT's sort of coding and software that allow you to do a lot of different things. I'm sure a lot of you have seen, there are different AI systems where you can ask it to create you an image, and it will generate an image of whatever you ask it to do. There's different AI systems that create new presentations for you, like PowerPoint presentations. It's wild, and I feel like we're very much just on the cusp of a lot of really interesting new breakthroughs with AI. So now I've said the name ChatGPT a few times. That is one product of OpenAI. They were the founder of basically mainstream AI. OpenAI, what their actual goal was and their mission was to provide all the source code, which is the code that makes ChatGPT possible, open to anybody to be able to use. What ChatGPT does is it answers questions, it provides insight, and completes analyses of different content that you put. It's been known to provide nonsensical answers, so there is something to be aware of, and it provides information much faster than a human can. So just because it can do it fast doesn't mean it's always right. So the one thing about coding and software and anything like this is there's a natural bias built into everything because the human creature, the human condition has biases in it. So it's really important if you are using AI to understand that it can make mistakes, that you have to check its work essentially. Now it's going to provide you a lot of simple things. So if you ask it for something simple like a definition, almost 100% of the time it's going to be pretty close to correct, because what it's doing is finding, the definition of a word online, and it is then just rewording it to provide it to you. So when you are using a tool like this, again, I feel like it's very important to talk about the safety of using AI, because often with a tool like this, it seems almost godlike. We trust it without double checking. And you'll notice, just to use a very extreme example that I think is probably pretty relevant today, if you ask it questions about Donald Trump versus asking it a question about Joe Biden, if you ask it to criticize both, the criticisms you're going to get of each are going to be more or less, depending on who you're asking about. Now, I don't want to start a big political conversation here or anything like that, but that's just one thing that's been talked about a lot recently with ChatGPT. You'll see a lot of criticism about certain people and not others. And so it's really, again, important to know that this is a software that's created by humans. Humans have biases, and it's important to know that when you're using a tool like this. Now, enough about the safety. They are great tools. I use them um, every day, I would say. So simple things like creating a blog post, let's say, can be done with ChatGPT very, very easily. So it can write 700 words in the matter of a few seconds, whereas the average person, it might take 10, 15, 20 minutes to come up with all that same content. So there's a lot of great places to use this. You can also use it when you're comparing different things. So for example, if you're looking for the best college to take a course from, or what to look for in a good software development course or something like that, let's say, it can scour the internet and pull up data and give you information much, much faster than you can research it yourself. And now, again, you have to verify that, but it's always really, really cool to be able to jump in, ask a quick question, and get an answer really, really quickly with a ton of really, really good information that's very easy to digest. That's maybe one of the coolest things about ChatGPT is the more information you give it, the better it gets. Now, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself here a little bit. What I want to do now is actually I want to hack your resume and cover letter building. Really quickly going to go through. Well, why don't I just jump in and show you? So what we're going to do just in this example is try and get a cover letter written for us. So what I've done is I've gone to Indeed and found a random position that I want to write a cover letter for. So in this job posting, what I want to find is what they want from me as a potential applicant. So big thing is going to be their knowledge and skills. So I've highlighted all of the skills, and I'm going to write my prompt. So in my prompt, I'm telling it to write a cover letter in under 400 words to Ontario Health, the company that's hiring, highlighting that I have the below skills. Now, before I press enter, please let me preface this with the point of you need to make sure you actually do have these skills. Please don't lie on your resume or cover letter. I'm just using this as an example. But in this example, I'm going to say that I do have all of these skills, and I'm just needing some help writing a resume and cover letter here. So now that I've got my prompt in, what I'm going to do is send the message. Now I'm using in this example ChatGPT 4. That is the paid version. There is a 100% free version to use, but I'm using this version because ChatGPT was down earlier for non-paid users. So I'm using my paid version to make sure that we can get answers here. So here it goes, writing the position, the cover letter highlight, and this is how fast it works. One thing I will say, obviously, don't just copy and paste this and put it in and send it off. Please make sure that you read through it and make sure that it's you, if that makes sense. You want to just put it into Microsoft Word, make sure that it really does highlight how you would say something. A lot of times it will use big language, I'll say. And so you want to make sure that, it's in the writing style that you sort of want. One thing I will say as well is in your prompt that you give to ChatGPT, you can say the style you want it written in. For example, I could have added something at the top here. Please write it in layman's terms, so I don't sound too big, I'll say. But what you can do here is copy and paste this, put it into your Word document, edit it up, and then hit send. Now, ChatGPT can do a lot more than cover letter and resume writing, but it can do anything essentially that you ask it for. But again, you always need to make sure that you're editing what it's giving you. Now, I'll give you one example it's a little bit off topic just to show you what it can do. But this came up the other day with a friend, so I'm just going to click New Chat at the top. I'm going to use ChatGPT 4 just in case. This makes sure that I can always get answers. So my friend came over. He's actually getting married this month, and he was having troubles writing his vows. And I put ChatGPT to the test. So here's an example I can give you. Sarah is not his real wife's name, just so we know. So I've got this here. I gave it a little prompt to tell me that I want it to be funny. And here we go. And it's writing me vows. Or in the case of my friend, it actually wrote his vows. I made him edit it. I will say that as well. He had to edit his vows, but I helped him, get a start with it. But ChatGPT can do many things. Obviously help you write your vows. It can also help you, do your cover letter and resume. It can help you search for things and do market research as well once you're into a position. So I highly recommend registering for a ChatGPT. It is free. The free version does sometimes go down because it gets really busy, but you can, always just try and log back in later. So that's essentially how you hack your cover letter. You go into the job posting. You find out what's really important to this company, really highlight it, go in, and then give it a good prompt to say how long you want it in, what tone, everything like that. So now we know how to hack, job applying for a job using, ChatGPT and AI to just stand out. We talked about it at the beginning with Canva, and I think it's important to maybe highlight again here quickly is, if you learn a software like Canva, you can always put that on your resume, but ChatGPT and knowing how to use that successfully is another thing that you can absolutely put on your resume and even your cover letter as well. So I wouldn't say things like I used AI to create my cover letter because that doesn't seem very genuine when you're writing your cover letter. But if you understand how to use it and get good prompts and responses back from ChatGPT, that is a very, very good skill to note. And so I would definitely list that on your resume once you believe that that's a genuine skill of yours. So it takes a little bit of practice. It takes really spending the time to understand how it works and refining those answers you get. But it's definitely a skill that is going to help you stand out a little bit for sure. So there's this question: is AI harming your application? So this is called AI-based parsing, and what that is when something goes through and looks over something. So parsing is a fancy term for software looking at your resume. These softwares are sold to employers, stating that it identifies the most qualified candidates for the job. And it's often set to look for keywords or grammar and different phrasing as well. So there is quite a big issue with parsing. The first one here, it's not as smart as we give it credit for because it's designed to do a thing and it's only looking for that one thing. And so basically how it works is, in my opinion, it has a built-in employer basis. And I know I feel like I've used this word a lot here. Um, Humans have bias. They just do. No one's immune to it. There isn't a single person in this world who doesn't have one bias or another. And so when a resume parser is going through and looking at resumes and cover letters, it's going through looking based on criteria that's set out by an employer. So if an employer is looking for something like 5+ years of experience in a certain area, and nowadays there's a lot of really fancy titles. A lot of people have trying to make up one off the top of my head here. I've seen titles like client success manager or something like that, when really what you are is uh, a salesperson, right? And so if the employer doesn't have sort of specifics in there like that, it might read through your resume, realize that, that fancy title that you have there isn't relevant, even though it is, and it ignores it. So now it shows that on your resume you've only got 3 years of experience, where you had another two with this fancy title that was also just sales. So you should have five, but it ignores you. So it's really important to know that when AI or software is looking through your resume, there's things that it can miss, and the employer or the person or the HR rep who set it up had or has a bias or something they might have just forgotten to put on there, and it can ignore your resume. Now, there are also accuracy issues. So there's keyword base as shown, and it's only shown to provide 60% accuracy. So that's where you say, look for the word sales, look for the word client support, different things like that. So when it says 60% accuracy, what it's saying is the people that are provided to the actual employer, they're only getting 60% of the people who really should have been in front of the employer, which it's not very good odds. And then the second one, the little bit more accurate, obviously, is the grammar based. It's been shown to provide about 80% accuracy. That's still quite a low number. 20% of people who should be in front of the employer aren't, which is scary. And now it's scary for both sides as well. So if you're an employer, you're in the HR department. I don't want to just be talking to people applying for jobs. If you're in an HR department and you're using one of these parsing softwares, you're spending money to get as many qualified applicants as possible. Well, with the current resume parsing systems, the best accuracy you can get about is 80%. That's not very good. If you're manually going through, obviously that takes a lot more time to manually go through all the resume and cover letters, but you're going to be a lot more accurate than these softwares because you're reading every single person's resume. Now, there's other things as well. A lot of resumes um, don't take into account formatting. We talked about those fancy terms. So when we're talking about, and I guess I didn't highlight this very well, grammar based. So what it's looking for is obviously spelling. Make sure you're spelling everything correctly. It's also looking for phrases, that might say, something that might include the word sales, but it can be a little bit more give and take. And then it's also making sure about your formatting as well. So there's a quote that I really, really love. It's AI is an editor, not a fact checker. This sort of encompasses sort of everything we've been talking about here. It's really good to help you edit, even when you're trying to search something, or I talked about creating a blog post earlier. It's great for helping you sort of get the fundamentals, but it's not to be 100% relied upon yet. I love this quote because it's something that needs to be front of mind every single time you're using a software that uses AI. So now I have some hypotheses. And I say it's that because I don't have any hard evidence of these things. So allegedly, no one sue me. This is what I believe about resume parsing, and the issues and the things that we've kind of been talking about. So because AI learns so much from humans, there is that natural bias in there as well. Again, it's 150th time saying that. But we've got social bias, we've got language bias, and cultural bias. So when you're talking about social bias, you're talking about different groups of people in different social settings. You're talking about people who, might be making really, really big money and people who are making minimum wage, different things like that. So when you're looking on a resume, that can come through on a resume and it might be something we don't realize, but it can absolutely be there. And if we're looking for one social group, essentially, without even thinking about it, that can happen. And the AI is just going to search for that. It's not smarter than us, it's built by us. The language bias as well. Obviously, with immigration, you're going to have people coming to the country who, English isn't their first language. And so just because they forgot to put a comma in the right place or misspelled the word color, so in Canada we spell it COLOUR, not COLOR, something like that might get ignored. So if, as a Canadian applying to for a job in the United States, let's say, if I spelt the word color wrong, I might get marked down, but that's a language difference and we both speak English. Now think about it with people coming to a new country where English isn't their first language. They speak it fluently, they can write fluently, but they miss the occasional thing here and there. They might immediately be disqualified when they should be a qualified person. And then you've got cultural bias, which everyone has different cultures. Different cities are filled with a multitude of different cultures. And so if the employer, the HR rep is putting in certain criteria, that might ignore certain cultures and the way people are or the careers they've had and different things like that. And there's that natural bias in the back of people's minds, and they might not know that they're doing it, but it can come through because the AI is taking from what it learned. We also have too many quality candidates will be overlooked. So this is kind of what I'm alluding to here is it's very easy to ignore people who may not have specific titles or specific experience. So just because someone hasn't worked with a specific job title doesn't mean they aren't qualified. And I know we touched on this earlier on, big fancy titles and different things like that. Another thing that can happen as well is short form. So if you're using, you know, AOE as a job title, or you're talking about conversion rates and you go CNV for a conversion instead of conversion as a word, you're going to run into a lot of issues. It's very, very easy to overlook someone. And a lot of people need to be given opportunities. They need to be given chances. Some of the best employees, and I'm sure if there's anyone here who's ever worked in HR, some of the best people who have ever come into a lot of businesses don't have a ton of experience in that, in sales or in customer support, but they can very, very easily come in and do the job and learn quick. And now I say that because it's it's very, very important to consider the person. Now I feel like I'm fighting this fight that it's a losing battle, but I'm still fighting it anyways, is when you're applying to a position, it's a two-way street. And so a lot of times it's just about hiring a good person and it's just about working for a good group of people than it is about the resume itself. And so my big issue with resume parsing and AI within it is there are too many really, really good candidates who are going to be overlooked just because they don't have a keyword or a specific phrase in the resume. Now, the other thing is document formatting is really tricky to understand. When AI is looking over it, for example, if you've got an image with text over top of it, sometimes AI might have trouble pulling that text off. And now that's a problem. If that text is a skill or your name, let's say, even for example, if it doesn't pick up your name, but you're a good candidate, it's not going to pass that name over to the employer, which is pretty fundamental when they're trying to hire you. So this is my hypothesis. I know I feel like I'm bashing AI, but I feel like there's a lot to be learned about it and a lot that needs to be implemented still. And I want everyone to know these, what I think, I guess, because you are applying for positions and you need to understand that these things can happen. So what do we actually know? What do we actually know? I know I talked about what I believe, what I think, and to be fair, a lot of it is based off of research and using the softwares. But now I want to give you some hard data. So dates have been shown to be difficult for AI to understand because of the different formats. So is it month, day, year, day, month, year, whatever the formatting is, that's an issue. So if you worked at a company for 10 years, let's say, but you started on January 12th, it might actually look like December 1st. And so that can definitely change how long you've worked at a company. Specialty credentials won't be recognized. Again, we talked about this. So if you're short forming everything, it's not going to know what every credential is in the entire world. So, you might have a credential that is super relevant to the position you're applying for, but if the system doesn't know that, or the employer didn't recognize that credential in their initial, their parsing, then you'll be ignored. It's kind of a problem. Uh, you need to use really common headings. So try not to, when you're creating your resume, try not to get too fancy with things like, the word employment history or the phrase in employment history. Very easy to understand. Using, something more extravagant to kind of stand out in a situation like that can hurt your ability for AI to understand what it's about to read. If you spell something wrong, you get 1,000 X's. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what more to expand on that. If you're spelling things wrong or using poor formatting and grammar, most of the time, resume parsers is just going to delete your resume. So review, review, review. Now, preparing for an interview. So this is the fight I've been fighting for years, I feel like. Um, it's a two-way street. Please remember that. I want to preface this with it's a two-way street. So now I want to address common fears that people have when they're applying for positions and trying to find that new employment. So I guess a little bit of background here. At CanScribe, where I work, we always try and help our students find employment as much as possible, and we're constantly talking to them about applying and what that looks like. And so many times people are afraid to apply for positions, and there's a lot of different fears that people had. And so I literally have a list of things that we commonly get asked and how I believe is best to sort of address those things. Um, so the first one here is a long employment gap. You see this a lot. People take time off work for a variety of reasons. And in my opinion, it's very important to just simply address it. So, something that we hear quite frequently is someone takes time off to care for a parent. Something like that, just address it. You know, People don't think of something like that. And I'm actually going to pull up the other option here, a stay at home parent gap. Whether you're taking care of a parent or children, let's say in these two examples, that's work experience. If someone wants to tell me that being a stay-at-home parent or staying at home with a sick loved one isn't a full-time job over a full-time job, no thank you. I don't want to hang out with that person. It's so much work taking care of another person, and especially someone you love, through and through. You provide them next level care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we work with a lot of stay-at-home parents, and they, take 5, 6, 7, 8 years off of work because, they've got 3 or 4 kids, even more, and they, daycare is expensive. We all know, and so it's really, really important that, in my opinion, that you address these things in your resume. So just like you would a job. From let's say 2010 to 2020, I was a stay-at-home parent. What skills do you have as a stay-at-home parent? Time management? I think so. Multitasking? Better than anyone else in this world, that's for sure. those are different skills you can highlight in there. So when you're applying for a position and they want someone who's good at time management and they want someone who's good at multitasking or handling a lot being thrown at them at once, I don't know if there's someone better equipped to handle those than someone who's been a stay-at-home parent or someone who's been taking care of a loved one at home. So put that on your resume. It's not a hindrance. It should be something that makes you stand out because look, I only have a 2-year-old kid, or he's just about 2 at home, but when he's homesick for the, 10 hours I'm at home with him, it's so hard. And I only have 1 kid. So imagine that times 3 or times 4 with a sick parent. It's just not going to be easy. Now, another thing on the unemployment gap I always like to talk about as well is just taking time off for mental health reasons. That's okay. That's genuinely okay. You don't need to address it on your resume, but be prepared to be answered that question when you're in an interview. And now, one thing I'll say is we know that there's sort of a stigma around mental health in the industry. I believe in honesty, but just be yourself. It's okay to take time off of work. Maybe you took a year off to travel. That's great. Tell them that. If you took a year off because you wanted a year off, maybe it was for mental health reasons, whatever it may be, that's okay too. And if you get asked that question, just say, I decided to take a year off to focus on myself. What's wrong with that? And one thing I'll say as well, if the employer has an issue with that, you probably don't want to work for them. Something that we always hear about as well is sounding or worrying about sounding like everybody else. Everyone's different. Everyone brings their own personality to the job or the workplace. And that's where I think it's really important to have your resume and cover letter show who you are. So yes, maybe you have the sales experience or you've been a healthcare documentation specialist for really, really long, but so is someone else. Who are you? Show who you are on your resume because people should want to work with good people. And if you're a good person, you want to showcase that on your resume along with your education, along with your experience in the industry. Your resume, being too long or too short. This is something that's super common. And so really the easiest answer I can give to this is how long is the job posting, like in terms of length? Are they asking for a lot of information or are they not? If they're asking for a lot of information, a lot of experience, you can make a longer resume. You can make a longer cover letter. If they're asking for 1 or 2 things, have a nice short resume. You basically just react to what they're doing. So as like a quick sort of 1, 2, 3 on how you can address these fears. First one is be honest. Honesty is the best policy. I'm sure everyone's heard that and said it 1,000 times, but it really, really is. An honest person in a resume, a cover letter, and the interview is probably going to be the best person to hire. Like I said before, being a stay-at-home parent, it's harder than actually working. And so be proud of that work, be proud of the things that you've done, and be yourself. I could maybe stop here at the best things to address all 4 of these, but I do have one more. It's only highlight what's relevant. This is really important as well, but you need to be you, not somebody else. You don't need to be a higher form of yourself in an interview. You can just be yourself, but only highlight what's relevant for the job. That's the one thing you have to do. If you've worked in a position that has no relevance and you have no skills from that job that are transitioning into this new job you're applying for, maybe don't talk about it. But almost every single time, and we hear this a lot from people, they worked in the fast food industry. They were at McDonald's or Tim Hortons or whatever it may be, and they're like, well, it's not relevant. And when I think of Tim Hortons, and now I realize I'm saying Tim Hortons, and that's more of a Canadian coffee chain, Dunkin' Donuts, let's say. They are so busy at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. in the morning, just pushing out coffees, right? So if you can work in an environment like that and thrive, it's a pretty good skill to have. And so if you don't have a ton of experience, just make sure that the experience you do have is relevant to the job you're applying for. So, for example, if you're reading the job description and it says something along the lines of, you need to work in a fast-paced environment, if you're working at Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons, um, serving coffees to 1,500 people in the span of 2 hours, that's a pretty fast-paced environment, I would say. So make sure to highlight that on your resume. So now, the actual steps that you can take. Step one, when you're preparing for your interview, is to research the company, research who's interviewing you, know your resume, and know yourself. When you get that interview, you should know, if it's a sales job, you need to know what you could be selling. If it's, healthcare documentation, you should know what this company's goal is, what their mission is, who they serve. Try and find clients that they might have, whether it's on their website. If there's testimonials from clients on their website, it's a good idea to remember some of those and quote them back to them. If you can research who's interviewing you, sometimes you can't, but LinkedIn is probably going to be your best place to go and look. So I'd recommend trying to find that person and see if you can find out anything about them. Know your resume. So, generally speaking, they'll have your resume in front of them in the interview. I'm a big fan of you not having your resume because you don't need to be looking down at it. You should know it off the top of your head. So when they're asking you questions about it, you can just go, boom, here's the answer to that. Here's what I did. And know yourself. Just be yourself. Know who you are. Know what skills you have. So when they're interviewing you, that means in a sense they want you. So you need to be confident in your skills to say it's not that I necessarily want to work here, or I do, but you also want me to work here as well. Ready your questions. Employers deserve to be questioned. Employers also want to be questioned. I think that's really important as well. If you don't believe it's going to be a good fit, you want to find out sooner rather than later. So, when you're researching the company in step one, you should have questions about what they do, what they offer, what the work environment is. And when if you've been able to research the person interviewing you, you should ask them what they like about the position. What do you like about this company? And if they can't come up with anything good, maybe you don't want to work there. So, I I always like to think of interviews as a conversation. They, it shouldn't just be like I hate the word interview. I hate it so much. It should just be a conversation. You're interviewing them as much as you're being interviewed. And so you need to sort of just understand that there's going to be some back and forth here, and there needs to be back and forth. So if you don't have questions for them, my question to you is, and I'm maybe going to challenge a lot of people here, but my question to you is, why did you apply for this job in the first place? Like, really, if you don't know anything about them, like, don't we want to work at a good place that we don't hate to go to? So make sure that you're calming yourself with what you have to offer. It's just a conversation. It's really not a big deal. And I know that your job's on the line or getting a new job is on the line, I suppose, but it's okay. It's just a conversation. Now, step four, you need to be confident. You know what you have to offer. You know your strengths. You know your weaknesses, and they don't define you and who you are as a person. And the company is hiring for a position. That means they need someone, which means they need you. So I think that interviewing needs to change. And I'm maybe trying to do it one person at a time or a couple people here at a time, I guess. Um, it's that two-way conversation. You have skills and you know you can bring them to the table with this company you're applying for. Understand that truly. And I know people might understand it, but you also need to believe it. Like truly, truly, please believe in yourself. And that's what I have for you guys today. I know we covered a lot. I hope it wasn't too much. We talked about going through Canva and creating a really nice resume. We talked about AI and how it could potentially be harming your application. we've talked about actually going through the interview process. So I'll throw my work that I've cited here on the throughout the presentation. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too boring for you. If you have questions, obviously, please feel free to reach out to myself or AHDI, and they can pass your questions along. I hope everyone has a great rest of the conference. I know I will. So thanks again for having me, everyone.